Why is nobody playing Planet Coaster 2? And is it just because of the launch that was absolutely horrific? No, it's not that simple, and in this video I'm going to go into the reasons why there's really a hard struggle to get players back into a game that is currently developing in a very good way. More about that later. So first things first, what do I mean by nobody is playing it? Well, we don't have the console numbers, but we do know the numbers from Steam. And there is barely any change since the horrific launch, and you can tell how the graph still looks quite down. There is a slight bit of improvement, as you can tell, towards the end of its development now, but to be honest, it goes alongside with the development on Planet Zoo and also Jurassic World Evolution 3. It's just being that in the month of June, naturally it goes up a little bit. So there is no real evidence that more people playing it. However, a other factor might be still very poor reviews, right? No, well, actually, that's not true. The reviews getting better by the time. However, as so little players play it, actually, the amount of positive reviews are not as high as they need to be to make a significant impact on it. It's good to see that it's mostly positive, but what is the real reason then why nobody is playing the game? Well, it's them, it's us, it's TikTok. Now, hear me out. It's not the sole reason, but the development behind vertical videos, shorts and reels in the last, well, 5 to 6 years, I should say, at least, after the pandemic, changed significantly how we consume media, but also how we consume games. Pay to win, a constant flow of dopamine in the form of microtransaction and microgaming is fueling the very short span of attention also in gaming. It's not a surprise that it is the same thing as in media consumption generally. I also asked ChatGPT to tell me if there is evidence for that, and guess what? ChatGPT came along with some evidence, and I read through some of the sources and so on, and it's pretty much what you would expect from pages we all know, gaming pages and so on. It's not super surprising, it's not the newest news of the world, but it definitely goes alongside some other factors that nowadays make a very long-lasting game, which again ChatGPT also gave me, so here you have them on stream, and you can already tell that this is something, well, Planet Coaster doesn't offer from start. Now, there's more to the story. We also know that not only just the general attention span of people, but also the general, let's say, attitude and feeling towards the gaming industry since 2023, I should say, with all the layoffs and, the big crisis in the gaming industry, has changed how players receive games in the first place. There have been a lot of things going on, online discussions, fails and so on, with certain games, our beloved games, also like Cities Skylines 2 and so on. It's not super surprising that people became also increasingly negative towards games, and already if there's a certain thing bad about the game, it's even harder to keep players alive in the game. But also, and maybe this is the best evidence why the whole situation is not only solely down to the game, it is also down to the general behavior of players nowadays. And my example is going to be Manor Lords. Now, Manor Lords apparently is the game of the hour. It has been the game of the hour, I should say. Has been the game of the last winter, should say. It created a huge buzz when it was launched, an incredible amount of players playing the game, but they also dribbled off, and now you have just a very few people playing Manor Lords, actually. So why is that? Now, people got used to games, as I said earlier, the likes of FIFA, or now it's called EAFC, Fortnite, Call of Duty, GTA Online, and so on and so forth. While I would say GTA Online still has its very own place in that kind of game area, the other games became more and more successful by a constant flow of crazy update rates, skins, DLC packs, and so on. Not on a 3-month basis, as we know it from the Planet games, no, on a very crazy monthly basis, or even crazier with like the FIFA packs or whatever. On a daily basis, you can have these microtransactions. This is what people grew to have, and the problem with the Planet games always have been that they have a relatively fair amount of time between the updates. The only game that maintained an incredibly high peak for its genre, I should say, is Planet Zoo. I've got a different graphics over here where you can tell that Planet Zoo, even though not being the highest at the start, had the highest maintaining rate of players. As you can tell over here, we've got in these rates, we've got Planet Coaster on the green line, we also have Planet Zoo on the orange line, and we have Planet Coaster 2 with the blue line, and we could also add Jurassic World Evolution 2, which I didn't, but it also had an even higher peak at the beginning, and it dropped even lower than Planet Coaster 2 did, by the way. So Planet Zoo is a bit of the alien in that sense, because it was very much able to maintain a much higher and more stable player base, and that also maybe because of the console being released later, but that's a different factor I didn't want to talk about. Now, with all the context, I wanted to give you a very proper context so that this is not only going to be a ramble video about why I'm kind of feeling bad for the people not returning to the game. I wanted to get your attention, A, B, give you evidence that not everything is down to the game and not everything is down to the dev, but there is obviously a very big elephant in the room when it comes to making a game's foundation so weak that even at the beginning people have not the game in their mind as a very great game. Now, if we pull back the example of Manor, there is a huge difference to the situation of Planet Coaster 2. Manor has been received incredibly well, and everyone who's been playing the game at the beginning has been obsessed with it and very happy. Now, granted, the content wasn't super crazy, so a lot of people have played it for, let's say, 20 hours, which is a good rate for a game and a very great rate for an early access title. And then afterwards, they've been done what they can do in the game. Maybe they're not as like intricate into it like I am when it comes to different types of, villages you want to build. But whenever there's a big update coming, people will come back to Manor because of their positive connection to the game. That is something that people will not have, and something I'm reading all the time on the forums, on Reddit, in the comments on YouTube. All the time, people are like, I don't know if I'm coming back to the game, it's so bad. And this is where things clash now. A very, very short amount of attention that we have to spend. We all don't have that much time. A generally negative attention, kind of attitude towards games and releases like that in general, plus a very bad first impression. Imagine going onto a date, with a beloved partner you had a good time with. Maybe you split apart for a while, but you visit them again after they've been abroad for like a couple months or maybe a year, and you're so excited to see them better and, see them again, and you want to start spending time. And then you notice from a distance they look very similar, but once you start talking to them, they're like completely changed. They look the same, but they don't, well, it sounds weird, right? But they don't feel the same. It's a metaphor, okay? But imagine that. And then you go, you split parts again, and you're like, okay, maybe we meet later. But that intrinsic motivation to meet again has declined significantly. And it will be very hard for your partner to get your attention back, because all they can do is promise they've changed, but you've been disappointed once, so why would you come back? And this is a very, very tough situation for Frontier to be in. And I'm guessing that they're doing exactly the right thing, because to stay in the metaphor, the only chance they have is to set up a big date, inviting someone to a big date. You can't, not accept the offer, because it has to be such a good offer. And staying in the metaphor, maybe inviting someone to a great dinner or maybe a weekend trip somewhere. And to go back to the game, I assume that needs to be a huge DLC of some sort. I don't want to delve too much into it. We may do a speculation video on that. I have done one with the hotels already. That shall not be the point of the video. The point of the video shall be to, compare that still with the metaphor. Imagine you go to that date months after you've met the first time, and you've become very delusional, and just like whatever is gone, you're not as excited anymore, but you go there because the offer is too good to not accept it. And there's one chance that your partner has, is they have to really believably show that they have changed. And on top of that, they have to show that they mean that seriously and they have something else to offer. I know it's not the best metaphor in the world, but hopefully you get that. And once you're sitting there, you enjoy dinner, you will need to understand that in the discussion, while talking to your partner, you notice, hey, they're back to who they were. You know, they've changed, obviously. They have gained experience the time of them been abroad. They, you know, brought new skills with them. But under the hood, you feel like they are the same, and they start to remember that, and they start to be back at this, you know, very mood they've been in, and you feel connected again. You feel very comfortable in that situation. This is the moment where you have a common ground again, and you can build up from there. And imagine that person then tells you, hey, and I also got us a new flat together, you know, a very new area to thrive in. That is comparably that great DLC. But the only reason to sell that idea, the only reason why you as a partner would then, you know, join them in a new flat together is if you believe it's going to work, and therefore the foundation needs to be restored. So, long story short, I think Frontier is doing exactly the right thing at the cost of having virtually no players at the moment. We don't know the numbers of the consoles. Granted, I am not aware of how many people play on consoles. Kind of hard to find out, but I'm assuming it's not that much. Also, looking at the views and so on YouTube, you can tell, I mean, you know, Planet Zoo sometimes still doing better than Planet Coaster 2 does, being a way older game with way less updates. We're going to talk about Planet Zoo in a couple days in another video, just as a little plug over here. But again, Frontier is doing the exact same thing, and you gotta have patience. You gotta have patience, you have to work on your foundation, you have to make the game work again, and you do that with your beloved ones. You do that with your closest family. Again, to stay back to the metaphor, you know, imagine your partner comes back home, you know, the partner is going to tell, hey, I met my friend, and, you know, we didn't feel too good together. They obviously felt that I've changed, and I haven't changed for the better, and, you know, I need to change again. And what you do is you need to have your family back to change, to feel grounded again. And that's what we do, and that's what this little amount of people out there is doing. And also, if there's so much evidence to feel like why Planet Coaster 2 is also not visible enough to people, there is no one making videos on that. Imagine back in the day with Planet Coaster 1, you'd got Silverette, Cucamonda, and me, the lady, and also a lot of other creators who vanished from, you know, from this area. Also then later on maybe others. Geekism, Yonti joined in. He's still doing some videos, but Masked Bandit and the whole people from Bro Nation. There were a lot of people making videos on that game. There was like a whole kind of almost competition who's going to build the most crazy thing, and other bigger YouTubers, you know, stepped in to make some showcases of smaller YouTubers' builds, and that was like in the first year or so. People have been coming up with greater and greater builds after each other. And now you don't really have that many. It's like me, it's Yonti, it's maybe Tommy T who builds some coasters every now and then. And you have got eventually some paid YouTubers who do a one-off or two-off, like Let's Game It Out. And a couple of very small YouTubers I've seen lately, which I do love, but apparently they don't have that huge reach at this point. Hopefully they will have it someday, but at the moment they don't. So if you take that in, it's also another evidence why not many people see that. Because YouTube and the gaming environment on YouTube is exactly the space where games are sold. They're not sold in a store anymore. They're not sold in a magazine, and they're not sold in a podcast, you know. And at the very least, they're not sold in TV. So you need to have that space, and you don't have it at the moment. But as I wanted to show with the metaphor, you don't need this as of now. You don't need that to have that invitation. You don't need to post yourself on social media the whole time until you have changed for the better. And that's what they're doing. That's why no one is playing at the moment, because the game is not yet ready to be shown to the world. It's not yet time to invite your partner onto a date. I do hope that Frontier is planning for that date late in the year with a big DLC. Who knows? But hopefully that video was a little bit more enlightening to you, to why. Maybe if you are playing Planet Coaster 2, you will know. But if you're not playing Planet Coaster 2, I highly recommend checking it out at the moment. Don't expect it to be the date quite yet, okay? We're not here at daytime, but maybe you come over, visit, come for a coffee to visit a partner. Don't expect them to be fully blown up and nicely, having makeup on or whatever. They just stepped out of bed and had a good day, but it's all good, have a coffee together. That's fine. I just want to say there is enough reason to why not that many people play it. It's not a signal of a dying game at this point. The big problem has already occurred last year at launch, but now to fix that, we are on a good track, I guess, and hopefully at some point Frontier will invite to that date, as I said, and I hope it's going to be a good one, and I hope that we're all going to move into a new flat to thrive a bit better. There's not going to be that huge amount of players in the future anyways. If we reach the numbers of Planet Zoo, that would be amazing for Frontier, but for now, that shall be it. Let me know your opinion about this game, why you're not playing the game maybe anymore, why you haven't played it all, or are you still playing? Let me know. Thank you so much for watching, and hopefully that type of video was also interesting for you. Thank you so much, and bye.